As the poet Lawrence Binyon wrote, "They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them."
I retired after 22 years of service in the United States Army. Spent all 22 years in the infantry. I came in the Army in June of 1989. Meeting Cash, it was probably June or July 2005. I was coming out of the 3 shop and going to be 3rd Platoon's platoon sergeant. One of the first people that I met was Allen Cash.
Came in the military 15th of October 1986. Retired from the military 31 March 2009. Served almost 23 years, and a good portion of that, 8+ years of it, was on Kelly Hill. My background actually is maintenance, working with the infantry guys, and that's actually the way that I was able to meet Sergeant First Class Cash. First time I met him, I was actually the senior maintenance supervisor for the 115th Infantry Battalion. Was in the motor pool, naturally, which is where I hang my hat. Doing command maintenance stables, motor stables. He's coming down to, of course, check on his equipment. Actually, the entire battalion is there, but meeting him, he stood out.
Actually, first memory of meeting Sergeant Cash was when I was the AS3 in 115 and out on one of the ranges as we were doing our train up for our deployment to OIF-3 and going over to Iraq. Was really, running into him as we were preparing the range and setting it all up, and his platoon was running through. It was up at Cactus Range, and just the professionalism and how he was taking care of the boys in the platoon and getting them ready to go, and how he pushed his guys to be excellent.
He was one of my students here when I was teaching at Drill Sergeant School. Very noticeable guy, attention getter type person. Every time you talk to him or you engage with him, it's something about the guy. One of the qualities about him was always looking at building teams. So he would bug the crap out of me about pulling this guy or that guy, some of the guys he knew within the battalion into his platoon and building his platoon, preparing for deployment. So that was my first interaction and first kind of meeting with Cash here as a platoon sergeant.
Joined the Army right after 9/11, served in the Alpha Company, 1st and the 15th, and I ETS'd in 2005. Sergeant Cash was my platoon sergeant. He meant a lot to me. He was like an older brother. We used to fish together. He used to come to my house and fish with Sergeant Alexander. He also lost his life there too. He'd come to my house and get a couple cocktails out, and we would sit on the back of the truck, fish in my pond. And just not him not being a boss then, but a friend. Normal business day, you get up, go to the track line and get your Bradleys ready, do the maintenance, and Cash was always there with us on the back of the Bradley, making sure our maintenance was done, checking our records, and just train as hard as you can train. Just the way he always kept us safe. Like, we never had to worry about not being safe, like on a patrol or even back at Fort Benning. He always took care of his guys, always. I mean, even on patrol in the firefights, he always made sure we were safe first.
We got into Iraq in January of 2005. A couple months later, I took command of Alpha Company, and so I had been his company commander for about 6-7 months by the time the incident had taken place. We'd just come off of Iraqi elections that year. It'd been a pretty rough time starting in September. We'd had a pretty big incident with a KBR convoy that had been ambushed, and we knew that any time a resupply convoy came into our AO, that there was potential for for loss of life. There's potential for damage to the vehicles if we didn't go out and secure it and make sure that they could come in.
Just about before sunset, like I said, we were coming in, clearing the route, coming back into town or coming back out of town and then getting back onto the installation. I remember clearing everything out, and then we started getting a little bit of bad weather in.
We come out, we have red air, meaning that we had a dust storm had come in, the medevacs can't fly. Everything was stacked against the platoon for going out. The platoon leader and I had sat down, we're having a conversation on, do we try to push the mission? Do we try to push the resupply convoy to the right by a day? And Sergeant Cash was part of that conversation as one of the NCOs who really is part of what was going on, and said, no sir, we can't do that. We need the supplies. We need to protect those people.
I really remember that day specifically because we, Sergeant Cash, myself, Sergeant Alexander, and some of the other guys from his vehicle, or from his platoon, we had breakfast that morning. And of course, I was sitting over at a table by myself, and he's sitting with all of his guys. And as he was getting up, he's like, "Top, we're rolling out." I said, "All right, Cash, man." I said, "Hey, y'all be safe." And he said, "Hey, we'll see you at midnight, chow." And that was the last words we said to each other.
That patrol, I was supposed to go out on. As a matter of fact, I had all my stuff. And I was going out on it. Then one of his tracks went down. I told him, just go ahead and bump me off the patrol then, because you need as many soldiers as you can.
They rolled the gate, they start doing their pre-combat checks up there, and Sergeant First Class Cash, Bradley, actually has a mechanical issue. And he, being who he is, he jumped off into another Bradley and jumped into the gunner's seat just to make sure he was on that patrol. He was a master gunner. He was very, very versed in the Bradley and its operations and could do just about anything within that turret. So he pushed himself in first, and then his Bradley now takes the lead. They roll the gate first, and they roll out and down a big long stretch of road that we had to the very first intersection. And then unfortunately, that's where we had our, about 15 minutes away from the forward operating bases where the incident took place.
I remember being in my CP at the FOB McKenzie, when the call came across the radio. And of course, when you hear IED, vehicle's been hit, you don't immediately expect the worst, but you just don't know. Because those things just changes everything in the blink of an eye. And then as the reports were coming down, we've got soldiers that are wounded, you just start praying that everybody's going to be okay.
Probably, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour later is when we really received the initial message, look, you need to go ahead and get everything on, you got to get to the vehicles, you got to get out there, something just happened. We had been hit before, I had just never seen anything like this.
That just to know that he got out of the vehicle after the explosion, uninjured, and that he selflessly went back into that vehicle to pull all of his men out while the vehicle was on fire, risking his life each chance he goes back in there. And even though his leadership is trying to tell him, hey, you need to get to the medevac, you need to get over here, we need to take care of you, and he's on fire. And he kept going back in that vehicle to pull his men out. Selfless service.
When I got there, this dude was still running around, man, trying to get his soldiers on stretchers and get them into the ambulance. So I finally had to tell the guy, hey, lay down, you know, and so Doc looked at him, and as Doc looked at him, he kept telling the Doc to look at his other soldiers.
Myself, Captain Hathaway, and our little PSD group was back at the FOB for QRF. And next thing, we all had radios, and next thing we hear that they got hit and it was bad. We waited to the medevac to get back to get them on birds, and it was pretty bad scene.
As we pull back into our FOB, and by this time the weather is just horrible, completely black. The medevac aircraft had told us, you know, as we were going out that they're not going to be able to land out where we were at, so we were going to have to pull the casualties back to our installation. And then as soon as we got back to McKenzie and got them near the LZ, the ramp drops, I get out of my vehicle, I see the vehicle in front of me, like I said, the ramp drops, and we're starting to offload casualties, and Cash walks off the back of the ramp. Like you and I walking today. He walks off the back of the ramp. What I did notice was from pretty much his waist down was everything was just burnt off. And it being the terrible weather coming in and it being nighttime, we had headlamps, we had our headlights on our vehicles to give us some additional lighting, but the injuries didn't look that bad.
I get back to the FOB, and the first story that's told to me is coming from our ops sergeant major. Sergeant Major Yancey was, you know, Cash had refused to get on the aircraft until every last one of his guys was on. So here's a guy who has almost no clothes on, who burned over 72% of his body, and he's standing there refusing to get on the aircraft until every one of his guys was evacuated.
Don't know how fast they got there, couldn't remember the time, but they landed. We got everybody on the aircraft, and they finally got him to lay down on a stretcher and put him on the aircraft and evac'd him.
You know, Cash was always, he was asking about his soldiers, you know, and it was like, the doctor couldn't believe this guy was burned over half his body, and he's concerned about, you know, his soldiers more than he is for himself. Heard the same thing happen in San Antonio when they finally got him out of Germany and into San Antonio.
I can't remember who it was that visited the hospital in Texas. He didn't cease to ask about his men that were in that burn unit with him. He never stopped asking about them. Who does that? To have that much love for somebody else that I put them before me.
I felt that my decision to honor Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash was something that was very personal to me, due to the fact that in the veteran community there's a strong push to get him a Medal of Honor, which is something that the community believes that he deserves.
15 years, and now the recommendation to award the Medal of Honor to Sergeant Cash is headed to the president's desk. And last night, a White House source told NBC News that the president is supportive of approving the award.
I still have his fishing catalog at home with his name, Sergeant First Class Cash, on it. I keep that, you know, close to me. You know, that's what I have left. That's the only thing I have left of him, and some photos.
I got his picture at my house. And of course, we got the yearbook from the year that we were there in Iraq that I can go back to and look at his picture. If I could see him now, I'd just hug him and say, man, you are the non-commissioned officer that each one of us should strive to be. You set the example.
It shows that, you know, no matter who you are, you know, you take care of your people. And I think it's a shining example of what we all should strive to be when it comes to our soldiers. Talking truly taking care of their welfare first, then what are you as a leader? And I think he showed that. He took care of his guys. And that's the most anybody could ever imagine. He trained them, he fought them, and he took care of them.